Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the UKLC. We're about to kick it off with game number 3 between London and Munster Rugby. I completely forgot my words there. Munster Rugby. Orcs, talk to me about these teams. What are we looking at?
So I think a lot of people have the opinion that London is one of the most stacked rosters. We just saw Enclave, obviously a big performer. But for me, ultimately, London are by all means a strong roster as well. We've seen really well-known names like Bertree, Chimera, and Raisins in their top, mid, and support, respectively. Warden has made a name for himself playing in the URLs. And then Golden God, a less-known name, but he was a solid performer during the qualifiers. This is where London came from, qualifying for the UKLC for the first time. So this is the team to beat for a lot of rosters. I think Enclave has a decent shot at challenging them, but for a lot of other teams, it is going to be an uphill battle. Now, on Munster, they do have a fair few names that you may recognize. If you've sort of looked at the second and third, well, the UKL, a lot of these players showed up there. The UKLC, obviously, less experience from them. Diva in the mid lane has shown his face, but players like No Name, DBL, Blue Spirit have sort of shown their pedigree in these leagues below the UKLC, and this is that opportunity to prove themselves on a roster that is playing in the bigger leagues.
Yeah, and obviously, if you look over inside London, you've got Bertree, Chimera, some really big names. Now, let's have a little look at our standings so far. Obviously, we only had 2 games so far, but you can have a little look at where everybody is standing so far. For the Demise, they are sitting at number 1 with Enclave. Obviously, Envision and Barrage have already lost the game so far, but it is day 1. We're halfway through it, so you can kind of see where the chips are starting to fall. But I feel after week 2, I think that's when we'll probably have a good idea of, an average power ranking, because at least every team has played 4 games at that point. And then we'll have a good idea of kind of, who's starting to look strong, who's looking to pull ahead of the pack, and who might be struggling. And, if you're in this league, you really don't want to be coasting in the middle either. Coasting in the middle is fine because you're not worried about relegation, but you're not pulling yourself into that winning position. So we'll have to see. At the end of week 2, that's when I want to kind of review all that stuff. But should be getting into picks and bans fairly soon. See our games. So curious to see where the attention goes. We've been kind of bigging up this Varus Fresh as like a massive thing, and Shogun showed us why the Fresh is good. We saw why the Varus was good in lane, but there was an answer in that last game to it. So we'll have to see whether or not, if that wants to get through, if there's an answer this time for either one of these teams. But let's have a little look at what's going through. We're into picks and bans already. And it's London on the blue side, Munster Rugby on the red. The Soroka will be the first ban in this game.
I think ultimately the thing with the Varus is it's so powerful in the laning phase. It translates into a great mid game. It does start to struggle after that. You're reliant on hitting those skill shots. When you get into team fights, one missed skill shot can be the difference between you being a huge impact champion or a low impact champion. And then on top of that, in the later stages, you do actually start to get outmatched by these crit-based AD carries like the Aphelios, like the Jin, even that we saw there, which is a bit more of a fringe pick. But it's the fact that you set the game up for success so effectively. And we saw Enclave manage to mitigate that, but you cannot guarantee that. This is why we're seeing this champion banned away so much. It can just become an absolute monster for the sides. For now, we're seeing typically expected the Syndra, the Trundle, the Varus, the Ornn, all standard bans. Soroka is a little bit more fringe. We saw a fair amount of that in the qualifiers, even some Soroka top lane. But for the most part, we were seeing the rest of these teams prioritized more so. Rest of these picks, sorry.
All righty. Now, over to London. The Graves has been left open. It's been banned away all day. We're going to see why that gets picked up. Instantly, the Fresh and the Wukong is picked up for the side of Munster. London have to answer out now towards that top side. What do they want to be playing into this Wukong? We've seen the Blitzcrank as a counter towards the Fresh. We saw that in the play-ins as well.
I thought you were going to say, we saw the Blitzcrank and it countered the Wukong, and I was like,
absolutely
what?
Not. Absolutely not.
I haven't
put the clone in.
Yeah, Blitzcrank can work in the Thresh because obviously when you throw out that hook, you are locked in place. And obviously yanking in someone like that who can be squishy can be a problem. Ultimately, they're going to secure the Misfortune. So with a lot of these AD carries taken down, it does rise in priority. To be honest, we've only seen the Varus gone. So we could see Aphelios, we could see Ezreal. A lot of options still available to Munster. The question is going to be, what are London going to want to prioritize now? Thresh does seem to be the king of the supports right now because there's no great matchups into him. Nautilus does okay. Blitzcrank is seen as a counter, but is very hit or miss. I mean, that's how the champion is because he's very weighted on his rocket grab. But Nautilus can have a lot of impact in the lane. And right now we're seeing, an Aphelios who's going to scale well, a Thresh who can protect him. But it's a pretty aggressive combo coming out from London in the bot lane.
Alrighty, now the Vladimir is going to get taken away. We'll have a look at what the attention is for the side of London. They could just look to kind of pick away these junglers and give Warden as good of a matchup as possible. When we saw them in the qualifiers, he had a stellar game on the Graves, constantly moving throughout that jungle, just clearing, counter jungling away. I have to see what his game plan is. The Akali is going to get denied from D.Va here. Potentially from DBL is still technically flexible. We'll see what the next ban from the side of Munster will be.
Yeah, and that's the thing is the Wukong can be flexed into different lanes depending on the matchup. Whereas for London, those champions are pretty rigidly set in place. To see another top lane ban come out with this Mordekaiser can be a problem in a lot of circumstances. I think later in the game as well for a Wukong, Mordekaiser can just ult you, and then late enough in the game, you'll often win that 1v1. And then even if you can evade him, it's like you often just can't impact a team fight with your ult. Wukong wants to be hitting 5 people with his knockup twice in a row. Mordekaiser really shuts that down. And seeing a jungle ban come out here, just getting rid of that Jarvan, obviously can cause problems for Misfortune, who only has really the flash for mobility. Actually seen the Urgot come out.
Okay, been a while since I've seen the Urgot.
So this indicates it likely isn't a Wukong in the top lane. Could well be jungle or mid. And the question is going to be, what does London have to answer this Urgot?
Well, it looks like for now they're potentially looking towards a top laner to get something for Beartree. See what Beartree wants to get his hands on. Or they may just go towards the mid. I mean, they've got to pick both up here. The Orianna is a fine blind pick. Offers some decent team fighting tools as well as just pretty reliable wave clear. And now London, they need to look towards their top lane. What are they going to pick up to potentially deal with this Urgot or this Wukong? Because they don't really know what's going where. You assume it's going to be the Urgot in the top lane.
I think the Wukong's the one more likely to flex. I don't think you'd put Urgot mid into an Orianna or just into wherever that London could pick up. Sion actually can do okay. His early trading's pretty good. He does scale up to become an absolute monster. There does come a point where Urgot can actually potentially kill him, but for the most part, you're going to be all right with that one. And even if you do get low enough, your ult can stop Urgot's ult from dragging you in. So see the Azir coming as the matchup into Orianna. Again, makes sense. You sort of see a lot of these safe mids like the Azir, the Corki, the Orianna. And it's almost a little bit like rock, paper, scissors. The Corki does well into the Azir. The Azir does pretty good into the Orianna. The Orianna does well into the Corki. So being on red side, they have a little bit of the edge with regards to that. But ultimately, we're seeing a little bit of variation in these drafts from what we saw from the earlier teams.
All right, Orcs, give me your predictions. Who do you think is going to win this game? Looking at the comps alone, who's got the upper hand?
I went with London with my initial guess, and I don't think this changes that drastically. So I'm still on the London hype train.
On that London hype train. Right, while we're loading through onto the Summons Rift, we're going to cut to a quick break. We're back in 2 minutes, locked and loaded and ready to go into game number 3. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the UK League Championship. We are loading into game number 3 of the day between London and Munster Rugby Gaming Academy. However, we have had a little snag, a little snitch here, so we shouldn't be too long before we get going into the game. But, you know, what would day number 1 be of, you know, a UK show without some kind of technical issues? So far, so good, but hopefully it won't be too much longer now. I want to have a little bit of a breakdown onto these comps and, you know, talk a little bit more in depth about what we're looking at. So, Wukong Jungle Orcs, what's going on about this?
I mean, essentially, the power of the Wukong is you have that sort of way of getting into lanes. You have a lot of mobility in the early levels. You have a decent amount of damage to clean up low HP targets. And then once you hit level 6, the double knockup is just so threatening, especially if you're in a long lane like top or bottom. You can really do a ton of work with that, and the team fighting power is huge. So, it's just a lot of the strength of Wukong. You're not going to be as powerful as a lane Wukong would be, but you can offer that to the rest of the map. So really looking for him to make the impact at that level 6 point. Right now, we see a lot of strong sort of late game potential champions like the Philos and the Azir. The Urgot as well will eventually become something that can shred through Sion. But the thing that really comes together for London is when they're grouped up as a team. When you have the Orianna, Misfortune, ults in combination, that is what is threatening.
Yeah, and I think like when you're looking at that Urgot as well, come level 6 onwards, he only has to kill Sion to a point, and then he can just like ult him. So that's always something you kind of got to keep in mind with Bear Tree is in a 1v1, in a strictly 1v1, your health is basically got 25% of it reduced off because Urgot will just consume the last 25% of you with ulti. So
but
could make for a pretty interesting matchup.
There's actually a nifty trick in this matchup where what you do is when he's going to pull in, you pop your ultimate to fire away, and then the enemy can't yank you in because you're intargetable at that point. So puts you in a pretty nice spot, and it sort of stops the Urgot from being able to find the solo kill potential, especially when he hits that sort of level 13 point and he really starts to come online and you get concerned. He does have a way to avoid that.
Yeah, now, unfortunately, the technical issues are still going on. I'm just getting confirmation on what exactly is going on, so it shouldn't be too much longer before we get at least some information on our issues. On our end, it looks like we did potentially lose Warden, so we're expecting a little delay here. But it looks like, yeah, unfortunately, okay, this might be a little bit longer than we thought. So we unfortunately just have to do a remake on the lobby. There was a technical issue. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but we are going to have to make a quick remake on the lobby, which means we have to cycle through all that again. So hopefully it won't be too much longer. The teams know what they ban, they know what they pick, so they should be able to smash through that and get into the game as quick as possible. But as far as I'm aware, it wasn't like a champ select issue. It does look like it was an issue on the load-in. So everything we talked about isn't negated. They are still going to be playing the same champions in this game.
Yeah, just a remake with the same picks, so it'll still be the same state of game, just delayed a little bit, unfortunately. We have a bit more time to talk about it. Yeah, so I think the critical thing is we're looking at where Warden's going to play around. I think bot lane is definitely a lane that you can lean towards with having the Nautilus and the Misfortune. If you free up the Nautilus to roam with you as well, he offers the CC. Graves offers the damage, and he is a very strong duelist in the early levels, especially against these AD junglers like the Wukong, because anytime you use that dash, you get true grit stacks, which gives you more armor, and essentially just makes you a very bulky target to deal with in these skirmishes, combined with phase rush, and you're pretty hard to pin down. So hopefully Warden, looking to contest these skirmishes, play around your bot side pressure and priority, and try and just get a bit of a lead in the early levels, so you can transition that into forcing team fights before really Blue Spirits and D.Va can become the threats they will be later in the game.
Okay, so while we got a little bit of time, I came up with a little game the other day. It's kind of like Snog, Marry, Kill, but it's Duo, Dodge, Report. So we got 2 newcasters joining us for the NLC. We got Trouble Inc. and we got Gulborg, and obviously returning dad of esports for the UK, Scoundrel. Out of like us 4 orcs, who are you going to duo with? Who are you going to dodge? And who are you going to report?
Oh, Okay, it's a tricky one. I think Gio has to be ex-Scoundrel because I think he's the highest elo.
Okay.
Dodge would probably be. we'll go with Goldberg, right? I
Okay.
feel like he's the sort of person who bring out some wacky picks, and I'll be like, no, I don't have time for this. And then report, and this one didn't even take any time. I mean, you could have just asked me who would you report,
Trouble League,
and
right?
no,
Yeah.
absolutely you, Jake, by all means.
Hey,
remember
man.
remember that Gangplank game where you were like,
Where I
oh,
got
this
a
is a great
pentakill?
matchup? No, do you remember that one where you were playing Gangplank into Galio, right? And you were like, you were like, this is a good matchup for Gangplank, and you lost. You know, I'm gonna tell you honestly right here. I reported you after that game for intentional feeding, and I felt it was justified. So
don't worry, I reported myself for intentionally feeding on that one.
I can respect
that was
that.
I got a pentakill on another game of Gangplank with you though. Like, come on.
Yeah, you sort of made up for it, but I'm still holding it against you.
Okay. Well, while we iron out the issue, guys, unfortunately, we are going to have to cut to another break, but shouldn't be too much longer. We'll get that over. We'll get through this champ select, get into game as quick as possible. We'll see you in a second. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the UKLC. Now, bit of a tease here. Unfortunately, we're not ready and not loaded back into the game. There's been a series of issues with players not being able to load into the game. They get through the lobby, get through Champ Select, and having some issues on actually getting all 10 players onto the Rift at once. Unfortunately, because of this, we are having to extend the break a little bit more. Hopefully, it won't be too much longer, but at the moment, I'm not able to give you a definite time on the break. So we're going to throw back to a break in a second. And, go for a wee, grab yourself some snacks, and hopefully we'll be into the Rift for game number 3 in a little bit. So thank you very much for bearing with us, and we will see you as soon as physically possible. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the UK League Championship. We are so sorry about the delays. We have finally got our teams through. There was a lot of issues loading in. We're ironing out the last of it now, but the teams are on the Rift. We are on the Rift. We are getting ready to go into our third matchup of the day. Orcs, obviously in a bit of an extended break, so let's take this moment to talk about what our team comps are and what we're looking at so far. So talk to me about, what our teams are, because obviously it's been a while. It's been like half an hour since we had our last.
It's been in eons, right?
Yeah, it's been a while.
The Earth has orbited the sun, and we're finally getting back into game. So London Esports, obviously one of the front runners for the league, with no names like Chimera, Beartree, Raisins, who you'll recognize. We'll be flying in the game soon, so I'll let the comps speak for themselves there. But they're up against Munster Rugby Gaming Academy with some less known names in the UKLC, but if you've been following the UK scene in general, you might recognize some of them. I think No Name in the Jungle is a big one to watch, and I think in this game in particular, he could be the one with a lot of agency in that team, especially if you compare it well with Jeppe Howe. Now, we did talk earlier about the compositions a little bit. A lot of team fighting prowess from London if they can sync those big high-impact ultimates together like the Shockwave and the Bullet Time. On top of that, you can definitely pair up well with Raisins and Warden. A lot of skirmishing power in both the Graves and the Nautilus. One brings the CC, one brings the damage. And on the side of Munster Rugby Gaming Academy, Aphelios and Azir definitely champions that if you get them into the later stages, can start to really stand up for themselves, but they have to get to that point. And one of my concerns is around this bot lane where Nautilus and Misfortune can be a difficult matchup to deal with.
Yeah, there's a lot of burst potential, a lot of CC to work with. Have to see how this is going to go down. So we're going to double up from Golden God. Just going to put a bit of early pressure, a little bit early poke. Looks like Golden God and Raisins should get that level 2 control of the wave, denying as much as possible from Blue Spirit. So that, however, that melee at the front didn't die. So at least Blue Spirit wasn't completely denied there. As mid lane is going to be a bit of a farm fest. This top lane is exciting to me because Urgot and Cyan are two champions we haven't really been seeing all that much, but I have to hold that fort because the level 2 comes in instantly, going out for some trading with Jeppe Howe there and just really starting to poke him down.
And that's what you're going to be concerned about. If one of the hooks connect, if you're not reacting in time to use the flay to knock it away, you can definitely start to put some pressure down that lane, especially when paired up with the Misfortune, and allow situations like this where Raisins makes a move into the enemy jungle, drops down a ward, just sets you up for future plays because you know the positioning of No Name potentially, and it allows you to play more aggressively when you're aware of where the jungler might be.
All right, well, kind of following bot lane a little bit here. I kind of want to have a look at these junglers as well because we've got the Wukong in the jungle versus this Graves. Now, Graves is a bit of a farm fest. He's king of invading. He's king of skirmishing, king of farming. He's very, very strong at the moment. Versus this Wukong Orcs, what's the expectation? How does this jungle matchup go?
I mean, honestly, I feel like the Wukong can't really sort of fight the Graves early because you just don't have the damage to kill him. As soon as Graves starts dashing, he's going to get so much armor for free that it just becomes very difficult to finish him off. So realistically, I feel like what No Name wants to do is instead of looking for a fight with the Graves, he wants to try and challenge the laners. He wants to try and find those moments where people are overextended. He can easily get in with his dash and follow up with some burst damage, ideally when the target is already a little bit low on HP or if they're overextended. Now, the only lane for London that's overextended is his top lane, but you can see that Warden is in the vicinity. It's blocking No Name's path, and it means Beartree is very safe to really do what he wants. But DBL has gone for the freeze, so this potentially sets up for a future play for No Name. If Warden finishes this Gromp and then he heads towards the bot side, likely Beartree will still be in an overextended position that can set up No Name. And you'll actually see that Warden has opted to path up towards the top side. He's maybe suspecting that this is going to happen in the top lane, so he's actually made his way into that top lane alcove. If No Name shows up or if DBL overextends, Warden is right there and ready to turn things around.
Yeah, meanwhile in the bot lane, looks like a bit of a skirmish is breaking out. Jefe has to flash away. He has been ignited. They look for something in the top lane. There is Beartree finds first blood. No Name will answer out and kill him as the teleport's coming in. They're looking to continue the chase. Beartree finds himself a double kill. D.Va teleports in and he gets diddly squat.
And you gotta respect the Sion passive. The tower takes him out, but he's still relevant. He's still there to fight. And it was just a great read from Warden there, expecting them to come top lane. And it ends up turning so heavily in favor of this Sion, who's quickly able to recall, come back from respawning, buy up those items. And now actually, could be some trouble here.
Get a lot. Great Lantern by Jefe, make sure, but Blue Spirits gets out of there. But that was risky.
Chimera's actually looking
for
here.
something. He's actually found Jefe. Remember, Jefe has no flash or ignite. Already getting slowed. That's going to be the hook onto the minion in the time. Hook lands onto the AD carry, though. Chimera finds the kill. Teleport's coming out by DBL. He hasn't got level 6 yet. And he's chasing Golden God. Golden God still got the flash. DBL can find nothing. And Munster unable to answer London anywhere on the map right now.
And that's a second late teleport that has amounted to nothing from Munster Rugby Gaming. They have twice tried to sort of counteract these plays coming out from London, and both times they've failed drastically. I think D.Va getting caught out here as well. A lot of damage going to be traded into him.
Beartree's actually smashing D.Va here.
Ultimately, London are just finding a great amount of success in these plays. And as much as it looked a little bit funny when Raisin's hook didn't connect, it didn't matter. He grabbed tower aggro, it allowed his teammates to clear up the kill, and then be able to back off. And London, great start to this match already. And now we talked about Raisins and Warden pairing up. The CC from the Nautilus and the sustained damage to the Graves. They're going to push in, get control of the Scuttle. And they could be looking towards a Dragon if they want to take it. But for now, I think they're just taking control of the area.
What's crazy is the amount of action that's broken out. And obviously Warden has been involved in 2 of those kills. But a lot of it has really come from the laners themselves. Beartree continuing just to farm away. He's getting himself a CS advantage. He's got that teleport advantage. So if anything does break out in the bot lane, he'll always be able to fight for it.
Yeah, and I mean, as much as it came a lot from the lanes, I've got a lot of praise for Warden in this situation. The read was just, it was absolutely where you'd expect No Name to go, and it ended up paying off hugely. And this is what you typically expect from the more experienced junglers going up against potentially less experienced junglers, is reading where they're going to be, where can they make a play on the map, and being there to counteract it. And it's just, if you go for a gank, you're likely to get 1 kill, potentially 2 if it's in the bot lane, but a counter gank means you're also threatening the enemy jungler, and there's just even more of a reward in that situation.
Looks like for now, though, things have kind of calmed down after that pretty explosive early start. The team's obviously a little bit itchy to get going into the action after a pretty extended delay due to some technical issues. They are here to play. Warden's going to go for an invade, steal away the blue buff, and look to push his advantage over No Name, and maybe look to start this Mountain Drake up.
Not really much you can do on the other side. No Name's not wanting to come near. They should just be able to take this one fairly easily. Warden can solo it, and the priority is there from the bot lane that basically just secures that bot side area. Right now, the top lane, DBL struggling a little bit in this matchup, and did say that the Sion is powerful in the early levels in terms of trading, and there isn't really too many answers for DBL right now, especially as he's down in gold thanks to those early kills.
And what does that mean? Beartree now running around with the Barmies. Probably has a fair amount of gold to base on as well. He's been able to pick up a plate and some stuff since then.
Essentially, it just means this Sion's going to become such a monster in the mid game. At that point, there's not going to be the damage coming out from this Aphelios to really cut through a Sion. And it's just true across the board. And that mid game spike will be absolutely massive for London, where, you know, the likes of D.Va and Blue Spirits are still a long way away from their items that can cut through someone as bulky as that Sion. He also, even these mid-game stages, just outputs such a large amount of damage.
Oh, Bullet Time's coming into the hook there. A lot of damage as Blue Spirits actually throws out the ultimate. He's going to take him down, though, by Golden God. They get the instant exhaust off onto No Name. Jefe here and him get chunked out of Warden now. Looking to potentially collapse here. They're just going to trade out, get these plates onto the AD carry, get this gold in the pocket of the London bot lane, and London just really starting to swing ahead here at 9 minutes.
Yeah, and it feels like Munster Rugby Gaming even rolling over a little bit there. I mean, No Name didn't even opt to use the ult, saw the exhaust come in, just wanted to try and mitigate that pressure and being the summoner, but just backed off, gives up the plates. And it's just a situation where we talked about how the power of this Nautilus MF can be really threatening in the bot lane, and it has been so far. 20 CS sub, got that kill in the pocket, burning CS from early levels. It's just making things difficult for the Aphelios to get to the later stages. They have swapped towards the top side, but without doubt, London are going to match, and you can already see them heading up there.
David's going to get some free time on this mid lane, so should be able to pick himself up a plate. Mera not actually losing too many minions here. The cannon tanks the way for him. Make sure he doesn't lose too much. He's got himself the tier and the lost chapter. So interesting here. Is this a more recent thing for Oriana's to go for the Archangels over the Ludens, or is this just a more a Chimera thing?
Pretty sure this is just a more Chimera thing. I haven't seen too much of it overall, but
I did think maybe I was just being crazy, and it's like, what are you on about? They always build that. I was like,
no, I'm looking at, I think it has been a more common thing. I'm looking up now because typically I've seen a lot of GLP came up as something that synced really well with the phase rush for having the mobility.
Oh, good interrupt into the teleport. The flash draw by Raisins. Warden's closing in. The turret gets placed down, but Warden gets the slow and the blind off. Knock up onto the AD carry, and Blue Spirits is down. London looking to close the deal as a double kill gets picked up for Golden God here. It was such a good rotation by Munster, but it was answered out even better by London. And they're going to chip away at this tower even more so here. DBL and D.Va are getting some time to get some plates for themselves, but overall losing out massively. A 3,000 gold lead now starting to accrue between these teams, and we're only at 11 minutes. These bases, these resets are going to be massive for London as the shockwave lands. Raisins kind of ints the hook there, so D.Va's going to live.
But London just so far dominating this game, and it feels like every time Munster Rugby Gaming Academy have a play they're attempting, it's just answered. You see now though, London looking for this Herald, and
oh, they stole the Herald actually. That was really big. Raisins throws out the ultimate, gets the divide off as well. Warden still taking a fair amount of damage, but Golden God is on a rampage as he cuts down yet another member. They lost the Herald, but they got themselves the kill. Not overly great for London, but they can be happy with it.
I mean, it's one of those situations where, you know, when you're behind, you take those moments to try and steal. Obviously, the fact they got the steal, they got out with a Herald and only lost one member. Not actually that bad, considering they're already sort of 3,500 gold behind. Yeah, and I had a chance to look up, and I've been seeing just on pro builds a lot more Orianas going to Seraphs, and for me, I'd only really been seeing a lot of GLP with the phase rush, but I think it's clearly apparent the extra shielding keeps you safe, and also Oriana is someone who can benefit from the sort of higher AP from going to Seraphs. There was recently buffs to her, well, not recently, but a while back, buffs to the ratio on a shockwave, so it really makes it hit. And then on top of that, the extra shielding, a big asset, and the fact that you can stack it extremely quickly. I think more than any champion, Oriana can really just afford to spam her Q and really stack up the tier fast.
Well, the bases are starting to come through. You can see the items that have been picked up by London. The Essence Reaver is finished up onto Golden God, and he's got himself an additional crit cloak to go with that. Warden's blind saves his life from Jeffe's hook, and now he's looking to go aggressive. The slow goes down. Look at the damage. Warden
Goodbye.
Cuts down the fresh once again. 0-4. Jefe having a really rough go of it. And this will be the second dragon over to the side of London as they get their hands onto this Infernal.
Yeah, and honestly, right now, it's just showing the disparity we kind of expected. London are coming in as the team to beat in the UKLC.
Warden
now they're looking here for
playing with
Spirits.
supreme confidence. There's nowhere to go. Another kill to get picked up here is the bullet time. Is there a fair amount? DBL actually jumps onto Golden God. He thrown out the ultimate there. Actually, sorry, held the ultimate. Just got to flip back as that's going to be the blast coming out from Warden to secure himself a kill. This is just unfair. Warden finds himself a double kill. He's chasing onto Jefe. Jeffe's going to get underneath the tower. But it just feels so rough for the side of Munster.
At this point, I gotta ask, is this game going to be quicker than the pause? Because at this rate, it's leaning towards it. They are really trying to get this game done as quickly as possible, London. Looks like they're trying to make up for the loss in our schedule because they are just steamrolling this. They're playing aggressively, but they have this setup for it. They have the vision control, they rotate the members, and now they have this goal lead. They don't have to be as refined. Yeah, at this point...
It's not reckless aggression. Yeah. It's very calculated, it's very smart play. So they might get a bit of a punish here onto Beartree. Beartree flashes the wall. He doesn't have the ultimate. The Red Buffalo just not impactful enough to kill him. And he got those 2 kills. And like you said, in the mid game, he's going to be really, really tanky. There you go. 3 members only taking him to half health.
And that's the thing, it's just that he's so bulky right now. Your carries are already behind in terms of items. You can see the gold in front of you. Just a massive difference, particularly between 80 carries. And when you're already down in terms of damage, it's going to be a struggle. Now, DBL trying to go for a freeze here, which I think is the right call. When you're this far behind, you want to try and just get an influx of gold. Unfortunately, Urgot is really bad at freezing because even your auto attacks are AoE. And on top of that, I think freezing normally is successful when you have a way of mitigating the other team. They are clearing that wave out, but I feel like London can really just hard force in this situation.
Yeah, they feel so far ahead. It feels really, really... It's stressful if you are a Munster right now. You're feeling so weak, so far behind. The Rift Herald's getting summoned in the top lane. And that's just a desperation play. They don't... It was about to time out. They didn't have the ability to jump for it. The mid lane turret falls. And Warden is just going for Blue Spirits here. He chunks him out. And Blue Spirits is just going to get sent packing.
Yeah, Herald's dead. They're just going to start putting some damage on this tower and... really feeling difficult for Munster Rugby Gaming Academy. I mean, obviously, we talked about the scaling options in their team composition. You extend this game by 25 minutes, maybe there's a hope. But London are not looking like they're going to allow the game to go that long.
This game might not even go for 25 minutes in the first place at this point.
I mean, 25 minutes total, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just everyone across the board really far ahead in gold. Everyone's sort of picking up item advantages. And a lot of kills, and a 7,000 gold lead this early in the game, nearly 8,000. Just, it's not a comfortable spot to be in. But we'll play devil's advocate. We'll look at how they can sort of find the route back in. And then the critical thing is that if they can get picks, I always say this: when you're behind, you need numbers advantages. So someone needs to step up in isolation. You saw them try and sort of establish that on a Beartree, but he was a bit too tanky and he had his flash. Ultimately, with an Urgot, who obviously can ult to sort of thin the HP bar down. You have the Thresh, who has obviously the CC that can lock someone down. There is potential for it. And if London do make a mistake, potentially you can start to pick up some of these shutdowns. There's 500 gold on Golden God, 400 on Warden. That's where you can start to buy some time and claw yourself back. And that's really what they need to be looking for right now. And it starts with No Name just stealing away that camp. You have to try and defend on top of that.
We've got that flank. Blue Spirits is able to at least clear the wave out, but the hook into the fresh. Bullet time to boot as well. Raisins goes golden. As Beartree's looking to keep his support alive. Raisins flashes away. Golden got separated from the team, but he's just too much to deal with. Jeppe lands the hook as he gets chunked out. Sandsoul just do a fair amount of damage to Beartree. Beartree's mainly stacking armor at this point. But not able to do too much more as the turret will crumble to the siege from London. Meanwhile, Chimera, he wasn't even there. He is just pushing this tower.
Yeah, just able to shove it in, and there's no real answer. There's no one who's going to come. There's no one who's going to step up. They're all trying to deal with the situation mid, and a little bit of a mistake from Jeppe. It happens. Fat finger on the stopwatch, and then ends up nearly going down, but the flash away does keep him alive for now. But ultimately, it doesn't change things. Maybe Raisins overstepping on the tower could have been enough to take him down if the difference was, 2,000 gold. But at this disparity, even the mistakes end up coming in favor of London. Even when Raisins is trapped in a tower and CC'd, he's still strong enough to survive.
As the Ceres finished up onto Chimera, Golden God has been running around with that pickaxe and that cloak for a fair amount of time as they get their third dragon. It's going to be a very early soul. It's Cloud Soul for the side of London. So the bases are going to come down. The resets are there. That's the Infinity Edge for Golden God. 2 massive items. He's got an entire item over Blue Spirits right now.
I mean, not just that, but he's also got tier 2 boots. He's also got that extra dagger. It's so rough. And we saw previously a situation where an Aphelios came ahead of the curve compared to a Misfortune. just steamrolled the game. That was in game 1 today, but that isn't always going to be the situation. When you can find momentum on a champion like Misfortune, you really can just spike so hard. Like you said, this 2-item spike, monstrous, where you just have so much raw AD, so much crit chance. The ultimate just absolutely shreds, and it's just not looking good for Irish side.
It's a rough start to the season for the side of Munster Rugby Gaming Academy.
I will say, though, what I always like to say in these scenarios, you're playing against what people believe is probably one of the strongest teams in the league. It's your game 1, so
Absolutely.
obviously, when you have a rough start like this, it's a bit of a tilter. But it sort of sets a stand. It's like, okay, this is what we have to try and beat by the end of the split. We have to be at this sort of level. And it gives you something to work towards. It exposes some of your weaknesses that you can then sort out. And as much as it's a bad start, it's sort of going upwards from there. And I think that's a sort of going to be the takeaway from the game if Munster Rugby Gaming Academy can sort of win this one. I mean, sorry, if they do lose this one, but there is still a slim, but I'm never going to say 0, but there's a slim chance they can come back into this game.
There's always a hope. If there's a will, there's a way. Just that way a little bit further out of reach than normal.
Yeah.
And this is a benchmark. Like you said, it's definitely setting benchmarks. It's first of all, it's London making a statement for how strong they are and kind of confirming a lot of the suspicions about this team and this roster, saying that they are one of the strongest teams in the UKLC, if not the strongest team in the UKLC. It's got to feel great for the new team to the league to start up with such a crushing start. Now, like I said, it's not done yet, but Baron has been started up and Munster are looking to answer. That's going to be the onslaught by Bear Tree. Tries to get the flip. The knock-up lands. The tower will die, but the bullet time shreds through the health bars. Diva's over the wall, but he's going to get chased into. The Emperor's Divide hits no one as London just backed off.
Little slick sidestep there from Bear Tree. Saw it coming, but essentially they forced them away. They've gained control over this jungle, and they can either wait for another fight or they can start up the Baron again, and there's not very much that the Irish side can do in this situation.
Looks to me like they're starting it up. Chimera's catching the wave. You can see the Bear Tree went mid, so it was a bit of a bluff. Baron's already half health. And now, Munster are moving forward. No Name knows he's about to walk over some wards. Bear Tree's going to step forward. 2k health on to the pit. That's the ultimate coming out into the shockwave. Jungler down. Chimera finds the kill as the Baron Nashor is picked up. Diva slides away, but Bear Tree looks to chase him down, forces his flash out. Golden God is coming forward. Look at the damage from this MF. Cuts through Diva like nothing as London find themselves their kills, find themselves the Baron. And now they can look to push in to the bases. Bear Tree wants to blind check here. Does get caught out by the Graviton, so the slow's going to connect. The Golden God is so zoomy on this NS. Look at the damage into the hook, though. They're looking to shut him down. The exhaust lands on the Blue Spirits. Golden God is going to get pulled in by the Fear Beyond Death. And that's enough to find the kill onto DBL, so he gets a little bit more gold. Blue Spirits flashes away from the Horde as Warden is going to get caught out by the Graviton, but Bear Tree still way too tanky. But now they've got No Name back alive. Maybe they want to chase for more. Turret in the top lane is going to fall. It looks like Munster pull away. They were happy with their picks.
Yeah, and London getting a little bit overzealous, so they're sitting on a lot of gold from taking the Baron. Realistically, should have just gone for the reset there, but they got greedy. And we do see Golden God go down. It's a big shutdown, but it's just too little too late. We're still seeing a 10,000 gold lead. Dragon spawning in 30 seconds. That will be the soul for London. And as much as the Cloud Soul isn't the most impactful, it's still a powerful tool for a team who are already so far ahead. You can see 3,500 between these 280 carries. It's monumental.
Really is. With Cloud Soul spawning up in 15 seconds, Munster maybe not really that fussed by it, but the extra movement speed will be rough as the Lantern makes sure that Diva is bailed out of any kind of danger. The vision control is being heavily cleared away here by London. Only one ward to speak of.
I think you just give it up. It's rough to say for Munster, but I think you just say, right, we can't contest the Dragon. They're leaving it. They've got Soul. They've got Baron, but they haven't broken the base. And I think that's the critical takeaway here. You defend your inhibitor towers, and you hope for another opportunity to challenge them. Elder is the buff that you really can't afford to give up. it's just about the wave clear now. And at least I will say they have a decent amount. Aphelios with the right weapons can cut through waves well, though unfortunately doesn't have his Runans yet. But they do have an Azir, so it's just stall it out as best as possible. We're seeing the goal in front of us, and it's been a constant curve throughout this game. It's just been London bringing up their advantages as the game goes along, and pretty controlling one so far as they're looking to break the base now. But Jeppe potentially on a flank here.
Yeah, he's got no name. He's going to flash, go in for the lantern. The Cyclone's there. The Golden God miles away. Bullet time's already been thrown down, and the health bars are too low. Bear Tree finds the kills. Chimera chases on for another one. That's two. Picked up for the side of London. The Shockwave will seal the deal. Blue Spirits has to jump away as his base is being cracked open by the side of London, and they are looking to chase for more. Chimera continues to chase up. The turret did a lot of damage to Chimera there. He does get lowered down massively by Blue Spirits. Lots of chakras to work with.
And actually, it's enough damage to get them low. They can't just end the game now. They're actually cautious about this two-man threat, the two carries of the team. So the fight was rough. I understood the plan. They wanted to go for the pick, but ultimately, I think the right call was just to wait it out. But they saw an opportunity. They tried. It wasn't successful. But they do still hold on to the game. We're not quite at the point yet, but Aphelios is starting to do some damage.
He's starting to do a lot of damage, but for me, the worst thing there was that entire play was to go onto Golden God with the Flash, Lantern, Cyclone play. But Golden God, no exhaust, no flash, was still able to put enough distance between him and No Name that he was completely untouched in the fight. And now, the next time they go for this play, Golden God's going to have that flash. It's coming up soon. He's got the exhaust ready now.
I think the thing you have to take into account is it's a Misfortune who already has a ton of movement speed. And on top of that, it's also with the Cloud Soul, which is given that extra movement speed as well. So it does really become super significant. You've got to remember, on top of that, we did recently see the Marksman changes, which actually buffed the movement speed on these Zeal items. So
I might be the pick then. The blast cone means Warden's alive. Naturally, he's just going to jump straight back into the mix. The big old bullet time channeling through the members. What a combo in the corridor. You just don't fight London in corridors. Two members
Munster
down.
Tried. They were looking for something. They tried. They nearly got the pick, but it's not enough. And it's the expected outcome. But London looking to end their first game here.
Yeah, looking to end it in style with complete dominance over Munster. Turret number one's going to go down. DBL throws out the ultimate, trying to chunk Bear Tree as much as possible. Diva still doing a fair amount of the Sandstorm, just dodges away, but gets caught out by the Shockwave as Golden God takes some serious damage from Diva. And somehow, once again, these carries just putting up enough damage, meaning that London are unable to close the game out.
I mean, calling me shocked. I thought that was it. I thought that was a moment London had done enough, but they don't want to push, go too dangerously. Health bar's looking low when they're concerned about the threat of the Azir and the Aphelios, but might find another pick.
Yeah, that's going to be the end of Jeppe. Diva actually does answer out with a kill of his own. He's going to jump forward, uses the Emperor's Divide. The Golden God able to buy the space he needs. That's going to be the Cyclone onto one, but Warden's coming in for that flank. Bear Tree's still alive. DBL is just melted through as Chimera finds the kill. The Moonlight Vigil lands onto no one. But Blue Spirits, with the Gravitons, able to lock Warden in place, but Warden just slides forward and pops Blue Spirits. It's an ace for the side of London, and this will be the game. They've got the minion wave to work with. The turrets will just melt. 28.5 minutes on the clock. London put on a dominating performance to start out the game. They go for glory. They find the kills. And this is London.
Great start for the new org in the UKLC, and was a little bit longer than I expected when we were talking about the 15-minute mark. I felt like the pace could have been faster, but ultimately London played a restrained game. If you're watching the UKLC qualifiers, they did actually drop a best of one there, so I think they learned to be a bit more patient. They knew the game wasn't really going to slip out of their control. They didn't overpush, and it was controlled throughout. And I have to say to Munster, it's a rough start, you know, and there's a lot of sort of rookie players on that team, and it's one of those situations where it's rough when you're facing off against one of the stronger rosters, but you just have to endure. You just have to look to the future and see, okay, we had mistakes there, we had issues. How are we going to develop over the split? this should be step one, and you got to look where you want to be when you get to the top of the staircase.
I wouldn't even say it was a heartbreaking loss. It was just a loss. Unfortunately, the game was so one-sided from start to finish for London. Munster tried, but again, like we were saying in the game, they are one of the favourites in this league. So for them, they lost that game. They now know where they kind of place in strength to them. And like you said, it's a goal. You aim to beat this team at the end of the league because that's what really matters. As long as you can make it to the playoffs and you know that you can beat teams like London in the future, that's like an end goal for you. Was very dominant and they've got a long way to go. But for the side of London, they really put in a statement in here. And, we still got two more teams to see. But from what we've seen so far, London are looking like our top contenders in the UKLC.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a statement. And I think particularly with the likes of Enclave, you're looking towards that and you're going, this is what we want to beat. For every team in the league, if you want to be number one, I feel like London has put down the gauntlet. They are the roster to sort of challenge.
They absolutely are. Now, there's not really much more to say on that. So we are actually just going to shift our attention towards our fourth and final game of the day. It's going to be the side of M&M Academy versus Bulldog Esports. Now, M&M have always been in the UKLC, that kind of like solid third or fourth best team. Now with the removal of XL and Fnatic, this is a good chance for them to try and reclaim their former glory at the top. And for the side of, Bulldog, they got knocked out in the very first split last year in spring of the UKLC. They made it back in last weekend on the qualifiers, and they are here to play. So, Orcs, talk to me about these rosters. What are we looking at here?
So I feel like on paper, these rosters honestly could be pretty even. I think we saw Bulldog play in the qualifiers, and although they weren't the most convincing team, the most convincing team was London, and I think we've seen what they can do. So I think Bulldog, there's some solid attributes to the roster. I think their mid laner, Thomas Go, had some good moments. I think overall, it's just looking for them to all come together and facilitate it as a team. As for M&M, we're seeing some recognizable names. We're seeing Aragon in the top lane, who obviously had a fair stint in the UKLC previously. We're seeing Vango again in the mid lane, which is an import player we haven't seen in a while, but is making a return. And ultimately, I feel like on paper, I would put these teams relatively even. It's just looking at where they're going to necessarily play around. Because I know Bulldog, particularly their top laner, Kera, is very much a weak side player. He was picking a lot of champions like the Maokai, even the Soroka in the qualifiers. And I feel like that's potentially an avenue you could approach, but it sort of depends. Because on paper, I would say M&M should look towards their solo laners and Bulldog typically look towards bot side. But maybe they shake things up a little bit to try and get the edge on the other team. But I think ultimately you're working with what you've got. We're probably going to expect to see that sort of differing in where the teams are playing around. The critical thing is likely going to be mid lane, though, because as much as they may lean to other sides of the map, mid lane being the center point is going to allow that sort of extra power when it comes down to leaning to one side and putting down the pressure.
And just to kind of correct myself as well, M&M Academy is their sister team. It's their academy team for the side of the main M&M roster. They are on the NLC with the big boys. So the main roster are obviously going to be looking to, once again, get themselves above and beyond those LEC sister teams. But for now, M&M Academy, this is the chance for this team to really put their name down as, one of these stronger rosters, one of these stronger teams. I'm pretty interested to see how this is going to go. Obviously, like you said, a few names that are new, a few names that we haven't seen before as well. So it's going to be interesting. For Bulldog, this is... how many of the main teams stayed over? Is this the full? No, Fortel is new in the jungle, right? For Bulldog?
Yeah. I believe, so they had Jenxus.
Yes, they did. Yeah, okay. So
everyone else is kept the same.
So pretty much keeping the roster they had last weekend when they were doing the qualifiers. And, it might not sound massive, but it's something. There's a lot of faith put in this roster then because of that. And also, there's experience on this roster. They've already played in a somewhat competitive environment as a team, and that's now just going to continue.
Yeah, and I think branching on from your M&M discussion, ultimately this is a team who has several UK titles under their belt, but never the UKLC. So it would be a big moment if they can sort of start to reclaim those. And it's a big challenge, as we've sort of highlighted, a lot of strong rosters who have shown up. But I think this is sort of the first step. Some of the games we've seen earlier have been a bit one-sided. I feel like both London and Enclave kind of put on a show to a degree. Yeah. I think this one, being our last match of the night, could well be the one that's closest and sort of has two teams who, as I said, fairly even on paper, and it comes down to the individual members. Now, Jankster still is on the roster for Bulldog, but they are running with Fortile today, so it'll be interesting to see how things are shaken up by that. And that's one of the strengths, that having substitutions obviously means you can show some variation between your roster. You can potentially change styles depending on who you're playing, but it also gives you an opportunity for more sort of new players to show themselves and prove themselves on this stage, because ultimately we do see some of these more regular names that we saw in the London game, in the Enclave game. We're also seeing a lot of more rookie players who, as much as they aren't going to instantly necessarily take over the league in their first couple of games, it's an opportunity for them to grow.
Opportunity for them to grow indeed. Now, guys, before we get going into our fourth and final game of the day, we are going to cut to a quick break just while we sort out some issues, and then we'll be getting ready to go onto the Rift for our final game of the day. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a second.